4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City. A fusion of politics, commentary, entertainment, and sports. Steve and his team bring you the latest news and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, folks, as promised, joining us now is our good friend Ralph Peters. Hello, Ralph.
Steve, great to speak with you again.
Well, always great to speak with you. And, I often say there's nobody I'd rather hear from under these circumstances. And fortunately or unfortunately, we have breaking news on two fronts. One, and let's start with Israel, of course, rejected a 7-day ceasefire request from John Kerry in unanimous style in the cabinet, which hardly ever happens because you have all the coalitions represented in that cabinet. And now there are reports that Israel is considering a 12-hour humanitarian ceasefire for tomorrow. And then, of course, Ralph, we have the revelation that captured Hamas terrorists revealed to Israel that there was a Rosh Hashanah massacre / kidnapping planned where they were going to come through hundreds and hundreds of these terrorists were going to come through multiple tunnels and kidnap and kill as many Israelis as possible. So a lot going on there. Yeah, indeed. And just none of this is surprising. That's the heartbreaking thing about it. John Kerry is just a meddler who is way out of his depth, who doesn't really like Israel very much. He works for a president who I personally believe sympathizes with the Hamas, not so much with Hamas, but with the notion that the Palestinians are innocent freedom fighters bravely challenging an imperialist power, and of course the imperialist power is Israel. I mean, it's just, Obama is a prisoner of his childhood with his left-wing mother, of his youth spent in the company of people like Bill Ayers, of his early maturity listening to the hate-filled anti-Zionist, anti-Jewish rants and ravings of the Reverend Wright. All his life he's been bombarded by this ultra-left-wing rhetoric that paints Israel as the villain. And Steve, as you and I know, because we've both been there many times, Israel is an island of civilization in a sea of barbarism. It is the only true rule of law democracy that's ever existed in the Middle East. It respects the rights of women. It respects the rights of religious minorities. The judicial system works. Even the president isn't above the law. And our president sides with the bad guys. I mean, it's stunning to me, but Obama's naivety about the world is not only hurting us and hurting Israel, it's hurting Ukrainians, it's hurting Arabs, it's hurting people around the world who yearn to be free. It's stunning to me, but in Israel, to me, and let me make it clear to all your listeners, I am not Jewish. I'd be proud if I were, but I was raised Methodist. I'm an Episcopalian, so this is not, you can't say, oh, yeah, that Peters, he's just another Jew. Sorry, folks. I'm an American citizen who believes that Israel is flesh of our flesh, blood of our blood, an outpost of our civilization. It's worth defending, and I feel this administration is betraying Israel, and it's a tragedy. And you are a great supporter and friend of Israel, as anybody who's ever listened to you or read you knows. And I was honored to be on the same dais with you at a wonderful event a little over a year ago now. So there's no doubt about that. Let me ask you about the villainization of Israel throughout the media. I mean, I could play you any number of cuts. I mean, you had Brian Williams the other day asking Benjamin Netanyahu about this. When you watch these civilian deaths, the death of children, how do you feel as a father? How do you feel as a human being? As if this was Hitler he was talking to or something. I mean, it was just insane.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Williams on his show, he might as well just put a little a little archway above his desk says Arbeit macht frei. I mean, the prejudice against Israel, Steve, it's a melange of different influences. One is old-fashioned anti-Semitism, 14th century style Jew hatred, and it's inexplicable, but it's there and it's tragic, and I deplore it. But beyond that, there is on the left this need for downtrodden heroes. And Israel did great damage to a primal myth of the left, the myth that, well, no developing power can ever make it because the Western imperialists hold them down. Here's Israel. It starts with a handful of refugees and Zionists, builds literally from the sand and dust an oasis, then a technological superpower that's just amazing, a flourishing economy, a democracy, a decent place to live. I mean, I'll tell you, all these people that love the Arab world so much, when it's time for them to establish a news bureau, what do? Establish it in Tel Aviv. It's, there's no comparison. As my wife once said to me, and my wife's a journalist who's covered various conflicts in the Arab and Muslim world, and on her first visit to Israel, when I took her, about halfway through, she said, how can anybody that's been in the Middle East not be pro-Israel? I mean, it's to me, it's just stunning. But for the left, it was important to believe that nobody could succeed. And here's Israel, against all the odds, succeeds. It proves it can be done if you value hard work, if you value education, if you value the rule of law, if you don't treat women like animals. And the problem in the Middle East isn't racial, certainly. I mean, Arabs come to the United States and other countries and do very, very well. It's culture. It's the horrible, decayed, decadent culture of the Arab world of the Middle East that just is going to always be in conflict with Israel until the Arab world reforms itself.
Let me switch topics, because I do want to get your take on the reports that Russia is moving heavy weapons to the rebels, far from being intimidated, far from saying, uh-oh, I better watch myself. It's almost like the complete opposite is happening. We heard reports of troops, 5 miles from the border, and now we got the heavy weapons being moved. They shot down two other planes they did a couple of days ago. So it's not like Putin said, you better cool it, guys, don't shoot down any more planes. So, I mean, what's next?
Yeah, well, what's next is more of the same. I mean, Putin has already invaded East Ukraine. He certainly already had invaded Crimea. And by the way, why should Putin back down? Why? When nobody's opposing him. And this guy has no reverse gear. Until he hits a wall, he doesn't stop. He has won every significant confrontation with the West. The West has just failed to stand up to him time and time again. And when a bully gets his way, he's going to continue being a bully. And when's the last time we heard President Obama say Crimea has to go back to Ukraine? The West has given up on Crimea.
Yeah. And
now in eastern Ukraine, we have known for a long time that those ostensible separatists are largely Russians, Russian military intelligence, and FSB, that's the new version of the KGB officers, military officers. The SA-11 system that shot down the Malaysian aircraft could not have been run by a bunch of Yahoo separatists. It takes a lot of sophisticated training to run that system. They've been supplying tanks, air defense systems to the ostensible separatists, and now they're using Russian military artillery systems to shoot from Russian soil into Ukraine. I mean, that is war. That is an act of war by any standard, and we're doing nothing. Our president's off raising funds and playing golf. Ukraine wants to be part of the West, is desperately trying to defend itself, and we could do meaningful things. We could put in sanctions that really bit, which we haven't done, sanctions that really bit. We can also supply weapons, basic weapons, and military training and trainers to the Ukrainians. We could shift our overseas alignment within NATO to base troops in Poland, where we're really wanted and appreciated. We could revive the anti-ballistic missile system that had been planned for Poland and the Czech Republic. We can do a lot. It doesn't involve shooting at Russians. It doesn't involve war. But to make a stand, if we don't stand up for freedom somewhere, I mean, Steve, Putin is not Hitler yet, but the pattern is there. The pattern is there. He's doing so many of the same things that, we all should be really, really worried about this. And our president, again, he's out on the West Coast doing the one thing he does well, speaking to friendly audiences to make money.
What we got less than 2 minutes left, so it's not enough time, but I do want to bring up to you, Governor Richardson on this show yesterday said, I wish the UN Human Rights Commission and the State Department would do less bothering of Israel and talking about Israel and more about the Christian persecution and genocide that's taking place. And you know what? Here's another instance where it's never crossed our president's lips, has it?
No. Our president will not stick up for Jews. He will not stick up for persecuted Christians. But boy, he sure sticks up for Muslim radicals and extremists, welcomes representatives of CARE to the White House. Of course, his notorious Cairo speech was a watershed. It really is tragic. And I don't believe our president is a Muslim. I believe his only religion is worship of Barack Obama. But it's tragic because of his background again, he sees Jews and Christians as the oppressors, as the imperialists, as the bad guys. And so we're watching the destruction of a 2,000-year-old Christian civilization in the Middle East, and not only not doing anything, but we have a presidential administration that will not even say anything.
Yeah, and it's very, very frightening. Ralph, have a great weekend, my friend, and thank you so much.
God bless Israel.
Thank you. Take care. Ralph Peters, yeah. God bless Israel. Ralph Peters is a great friend, and it's so important. He only said he wasn't Jewish to make a point to people, because sometimes you have to do that. That's why, even though probably from my last name, most people could tell I'm not a Christian, yet I can't fathom what's going on. And Barack Obama is one issue. I just don't understand how the world sits by and allows this to happen to Christians. I just don't understand it. And it has to change. It has to stop. Will it? Not if everybody's silent. And that's why it's so important for Ralph Peters to speak out about Israel, and it's so important for people like me to speak out about the Christian, really, genocide that's taking place. All right, folks, up next, managing editor of The Federalist, Joy Pullman. Don't go away.